Hey everyone, so in this video I'm just going to be talking about how I have personally modded as well as weaponized my S Class Willie. This is a character that everyone was able to get for free, so that's why I like doing videos like this where I can showcase specific characters, especially when everyone has had the opportunity to pick them up. It just means that a vast variety, like a lot of people are able to watch and understand the video as well as understand like how they can use their free toon. I know it can be sometimes difficult and challenging because free characters typically are nowhere near promo characters, and Willie was kind of an interesting character because he's pretty defensive. He has an interesting ability with overheal, and he, I know, confused a lot of people because his active skill actually helps the enemy. So you can see with my S Class Willie, I did max out his rush. I like the 4000 trauma being applied. I like the stun. I like the heal reduction. I also like the 100% HP because anything additional to the HP that he would heal but can't physically heal is converted to bonus HP because of overheal. You can also notice that I did not max out his active skill. So typically with his active skill, I believe it's either a turn 2 or turn 3 initial cooldown, and you're able to recover all penalties to a line of enemies while you also regain, I think it stays at 50% of your max HP, it might be 100%, but anyway, I did not max this out because I want to use Willie on a defensive team. If I max this out, well, I am not in control of when or where he uses this active skill, meaning instead of applying this active skill to a line of enemies that have trauma and that have some penalties or debilitating status effects, he could be applying it to any line, any toons, and really just benefiting the offensive team. So I didn't max it out. I just don't think it would be valuable underneath these circumstances. So leaving it at 1 for 8 definitely helps me with running him on a defensive team. I mainly want him to rush a lot. I want him to be able to take a hit. I want him to be a tanky toon that causes frustration to my enemies who are attacking him. So if you haven't touched Willie yet, feel free to max out his rush, in my opinion, but don't touch his active skill. If you're going to be using him on an offensive team, you'll probably want to max the active skill because you're in control. But otherwise, if he's on a defensive team, I just think that he could be a liability with a maxed out active skill. And as I mentioned previously about Willie, he does have a unique specialist skill, overheal. So if his character were to be healed over 100% HP, the character gains bonus HP equal to 50% of the amount of HP healed, like over the 100%. So this makes him to be pretty tanky. He continues to heal just with his rush, for example, with his active skill, and then also later on we'll touch base on his weapon. Now, with his mod set, I did a kind of unique mod set for him because based on the current meta, I see a lot of bleed toons and I see a lot of the infection and 100% heal reduction combinations. I've also opted to have a defense up when stunned mod instead of something like reflect damage or graze because I want my character to be stunned. And that goes hand in hand with the weapon, which I'll touch base on later on. But whenever Willie becomes stunned, his defensive stat increases by quite a bit, which obviously makes him tankier and more difficult to take down. The heal reduction resist mod kind of prevents people from preventing him from being able to heal so that he is able to rush and heal himself and overheal or his active skill or his weapon. The bleed mod, well, with all the Mr. Loos that are out now, the amount of bleed that can be added to a team is ridiculous. You can just get so high bleed damage on the first or second turn that you really need to have a bleed resist mod or a way of recovering bleed during a match. I also went with defense first tough because there's a lot of powerful blue toons out there. Princess Priya Beta are just a few examples, and then an HP mod just because I had it in the HP set, so it makes the most sense. I'm also trying to raise his HP as much as I can because of the bleed, burn, maim, exhaust. Now everyone, just keep in mind that This is what I'm doing with my mod set, but it doesn't mean you have to do this with yours. There are lots of good builds on different toons. I just hope that this gives you a general idea of kind of what I'm aiming for and why I'm using specific mods, like what I'm focusing on countering. Like I could also use defense when confused, because when Priya rushes, she applies confuse to a line of enemies. We think of Jackies, of course, and I'm pretty sure there's a number of other characters that are able to confuse their targets. Now, as I was mentioning previously, I did something different with Willie's weapon. I actually gave him a completely different weapon. I did a weapon swap because I want to focus on him being a windowless target. And by windowless, I mean we have a weapon on a character that can punish the enemy when they end up attacking said character. So in this specific case, I have AP down when being attacked, a better chance to cause minus 30 AP to the enemy. So this obviously helps with preventing rushes by the enemy toon. On red weapons, it would be a stun weapon. On blue weapons, it would be an impair weapon. On yellow weapons, it would be absolute defense, and so on. So with this weapon, I tried to raise the HP as high as I could, add a bit of defense, and I added a fourth non-critical slot that is just heal 10% per debuff on this character at the start of every turn. And there are so many different types of debuffs. We can think of bleed, burn, maim, exhaust. Well, actually not maim. Maim would not count, but exhaust would, trauma would, stun, confuse, normalize, daze. Anything really that you can think of that affects the toon, like defense down, attack down, or a couple other examples. Willie would be able to heal 10% for each of these that are applied to him. And in the case where he's stunned, well, he gains the 10% HP at the beginning of each turn, and he has his defense raised because he's stunned from that specific mod set that I made. So there's a lot of positives to having a weapon like this, and because it's not a critical success, I would say it's a little easier to craft because you're not using your crit success items. You don't even need territories for it. You just need to make sure that you have 100% success, and then hope you get lucky type of thing. But I tried to raise the HP as much as I could on this weapon because obviously I want Willie to have a high amount of HP to deal with the bleed, burn, maim, exhaust, and trauma, as I mentioned before. Now obviously this weapon would be better if I got the better version of AP down, which would be minus 50 AP to the enemy, and if it came out, well, more perfectly, i.e. the HP came out higher. Now I didn't want to reset this just because, you know, it does take some time, resources, and energy. Like eventually I might reset it, but for now it's doing its job well enough that I'm content with what I have. Like I could get 2% more HP on it, but considering I got the fourth slot as well as 5% defense, like I can't really complain with having one of my crafts not being the most ideal. And for those of you who are curious as to what I did with Willie's actual weapon, I just added a huge bonus to AP when attacking because if he rushes, he's healing a lot, he can stun the enemy, apply some heal reduction to the enemy as well. I increased the HP, and then I gave him the same fourth slot as on my minus 30 AP drain weapon. I think that this fourth slot is my favorite type of craft on defensive toons, just because there are so many ways that enemies are using, you know, debuffs of some sort, so you may as well try to heal yourself from it, especially if you're one-on-one with a character and they automatically apply like maybe a 200 burn or a 200 bleed mod, and then on attack they might stun you. Well, you're now going to heal every turn because of that, and we have a defensive bonus. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching and listening to my video. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of feature on S Class Willie.